There is a recording that police in Boulder, Colorado have listened to more than any other evidence in a child murder case. A mother is on the line, saying her 6-year-old daughter is gone. There's a ransom note. Help! Somebody! Please help! And then she hangs up. But the call doesn't end. The line stays open. A recorder at the police dispatch keeps rolling. And what it picks up in the background of that house, in those next 47 seconds, has divided investigators for nearly 30 years. Some say there are 2 voices on the tape. Some say 3. If it's 3, then someone in that family lied about where they were standing that morning. To be clear, Burke has never been charged with anything, has always denied any involvement. And in 2016, he sued CBS for defamation after a documentary suggested he was responsible for his sister's death. CBS settled. This third voice theory remains disputed among audio analysts and has never been proven. We're not naming a killer here. This is the JonBenét Ramsey case. No one has ever been charged. But a grand jury secretly voted to indict the parents. The district attorney hid that fact from the public and refused to prosecute. A police chief later admitted under oath that his own department considered the parents suspects while telling reporters they weren't. And the DNA, the one thing that could end this, still sits in a database, unmatched, waiting. By the time this video is over, you will know every piece of evidence that exists. You'll know what it proves and what it doesn't. And you'll understand why, in 2026, this case is not as cold as the world thinks. Stay with me, because the most damning piece of evidence doesn't show up until part 8. And once you hear it, you'll realize why nobody in Boulder has been able to let this case go for 3 decades. Every episode, we take one case and break it down piece by piece at half, using police files, court documents, and interview transcripts. No speculation dressed up as fact. If that's the kind of channel you want, subscribe right now. But to understand what happened in the next 47 seconds on that tape, you first need to know exactly who was standing in that house, because every one of them had a reason to be believed and a reason to be doubted. Back to December 26, 1996, and the murder of JonBenét Ramsey. To understand what happened inside that house, you first have to understand who these people actually were. Not the tabloid version, not the media caricature, but the real family. Her name was built from her parents, JonBenét Ramsey and Patricia. Everyone called her Patsy. The family moved to Boulder when JonBenét was 9 months old. After John built a company grossing over $1 billion a year, the same company whose payroll records would later contain a number investigators couldn't stop thinking about. He was a successful executive. Her mother, Patsy, was a former beauty queen, Miss West Virginia, 1977. She'd survived ovarian cancer in the early, and whose handwriting 6 experts would spend years arguing over. JonBenét was the youngest. Her older brother, Burke, was 3 years older. Pret, quiet, mechanically minded, the kind of kid who'd rather build something than perform, and the kind of kid no one seriously questioned at the time, until a disputed voice on a 9/11 tape put him back in the conversation decades later. And JonBenét? People who actually knew her say she was loud, funny. She made up songs in the living room. She did backflips until someone told her to stop. Her father called her the spark plug. She loved pageants, Pell, not because her mother forced her, but because she saw her mom on stage once and wanted to try. Patsy was thrilled to share that world with her daughter. But by the end of Christmas Day, 1996, that spark was gone. and the people who loved her would spend the rest of their lives on. Christmas that year was busy. The Ramseys spent the evening at a friend's house, Fleet White and Priscilla White. Other families were there. Kids ran around. JonBenét wore a red turtleneck. She'd already opened her presents that morning. A new bike she wasn't very good at riding yet. They got home around 9:30 p.m. Both kids were exhausted. John carried JonBenét upstairs, read to her their nightly ritual, and kissed her goodnight. He went to bed himself around 10:30. By every account given at the time, nothing felt off. The house had a security system. It wasn't turned on that night. The family rarely used it. The doors were locked, or at least the family believed they were. But there's a detail that would matter more than anyone realized that night. Months earlier, John had locked himself out and broken a small basement window to get back in. He never fixed it. The metal grate covering it outside wasn't secured either. Now, whether that window matters or not depends on who you ask. Some investigators think it's how someone got in. Others believe it was a distraction, irrelevant to the crime. At 5:52 a.m., Patsy Ramsey called 911. "We have a kidnapping. Not my daughter is missing. We have a kidnapping." The phrase struck investigators as unusual, as if the event had already been categorized before she dialed. She gives JonBenét's age, 6. Her height, roughly 4 feet. The dispatcher later said she sounded unusually composed for the situation. Then, Patsy hangs up caught, or thinks she has. The line stays open. For another 47 seconds, the recorder keeps running. Audio analysts who've enhanced that tape say they can hear what sounds like additional voices in the background. An adult male, an adult female, and possibly the most disputed part, a child. If that third voice belongs to 9-year-old Burke Ramsey, it directly contradicts what his parents told police for years. They said Burke slept through the entire morning and didn't wake up until officers were already in the house. Other labs say it's just static, old analog noise, nothing you could take to court. That disagreement has never been resolved. What we know for certain before police arrived, Patsy made 4 phone calls to close friends and to their pastor. The ransom note explicitly warned, if you talk to anyone, she will be killed. They called anyway. Was that panic? Or evidence they believed there was no real kidnapper out there listening? Before officers even reached the house, Patsy said she found something on the back staircase. 2.5 pages, handwritten, lying across one of the stair treads. Most real ransom notes, for the kind that come from actual kidnapping stoots, are short, a few sentences. Get in, make the threat, get out. This note ran nearly 400 words. It claimed to be from a small foreign faction. It demanded exactly $118,000, a number that matched, almost to the dollar, the amount of a Christmas bonus. That figure was not public. It was buried in internal payroll records. Many investigators argued that this pointed to someone with either insider access to John's financial information or intimate knowledge of the household. The odds of a random intruder knowing that exact figure were extraordinarily low. The note referenced lines from action movies. It told John not to try to grow a brain. No group, no manifesto. No one has ever claimed responsibility using that signature, anywhere, ever again. But here's the detail that broke the kidnapping theory for a lot of investigators immediately. The paper came from a notepad inside the Ramsey home. The The pen was found back on the kitchen counter, put away, not discarded. Handwriting experts estimated it took the writer between 20 and 45 minutes to compose. Forensic psychologists who've studied notes like this point to something specific. Whoever wrote it spent up to 3/4 of an hour composing it. Many profilers would argue that's not the typical profile of a panicked intruder. Investigators have a name for this kind of behavior: staging, when someone constructs a false narrative after the fact to redirect where police look. It's often linked to an emotional connection to the victim, rather than a stranger passing through, though it's not proof of one. And the note itself reads as that would require unusually close knowledge of the family's finance. It's the kind of combination some profilers say is inconsistent with a professional kidnapper, though investigators have never agreed on exactly what it does point to. Let that sink in. A stranger would have had to break into an occupied house, sit down in the dark, and spend up to 3/4 of an hour handwriting a multi-page letter, using the family's own pen and paper it had, before ever touching the child at all. 6 handwriting experts examined that note. John's writing was cleared almost immediately. Burke's was compared, but at 9 years old, he was too young to be seriously considered the author. That left Patsy. The lead examiner for the Colorado Bureau of Investigation reached a conclusion that's been quoted ever since. There was evidence suggesting the note may have been written by Patsy Ramsey, but not enough to say definitively. Not a match. Not an exclusion. Somewhere in between. Years later, a federal judge reviewing related civil litigation said he thought it was unlikely Patsy wrote it. So who sat in that kitchen? Who had the time, the comfort, and the specific financial knowledge to write that note? And why would a kidnapper risk staying in an occupied home for 45 minutes using the family's own notepad when any other plan would have been safer? That question has never been answered. While all of this was unfolding, the crime scene itself was falling apart. At around 1 p.m., 7 hours after that first call, a detective asked John Ramsey to search his own house for anything unusual. John went straight to the basement, to a small windowless room, a wine cellar near the back of the house. The door was latched from the outside. Inside, he found his daughter. Her wrists were bound above her head. A cord was wrapped around her neck, tightened with a broken paintbrush handle, a garrote. She wasn't breathing. She wasn't breathing. For a moment, the investigation stopped being about a kidnapping. It became a homicide. John picked her up and carried her upstairs. In that single act of a father's instinct, the crime scene was compromised beyond repair. His fibers transferred to her. He tried to remove the tape from her mouth. Patsy threw herself on the body. Evidence was lost. Here's what went wrong that morning, and it's longer than you'd expect from any professional investigation. Friends and a pastor walked through the house freely, touching surfaces, leaving prints. John and Patsy were never separated and interviewed independently, so they had every chance to align their stories. A victim's advocate was seen wiping down kitchen counters with cleaning spray after they'd been fingerprinted. No single detective was put in charge for those first critical hours. The basement wasn't thoroughly searched until John found the body himself. The clearest example of what went wrong, Officer Rick French was one of the first on scene. He went down to the basement and stopped in front of a door secured by a wooden latch. He paused and then walked away without opening it. He later explained he was checking for an exit route and reasoned that since the latch was holding from the inside, no kidnapper could have used that door and closed it behind them. JonBenét's body was on the other side of it. It would be 7 more hours before anyone opened that door. And within hours of the discovery, John and Patsy were allowed to simply leave. They weren't detained. They weren't interviewed formally for days. By the time detectives sat down with them, the family had already flown to Atlanta for the funeral. Boulder police, at that time, had handled exactly 1 homicide the previous year. The Denver PD offered help. The FBI offered resources. Boulder said no. They wanted to run it themselves. 10 significant failures, total, in the first 12 hours. The autopsy was conducted the next day. Cause of death? Asphyxiation by strangulation, combined with a skull fracture that measured 8.5 inches across the right side of her head. That blow alone would have knocked her unconscious instantly. But here's the detail most people miss. JonBenét didn't die immediately from the head injury. Medical experts estimate her heart kept beating for 45 minutes to 2 hours afterward. She was unconscious in that basement for an extended period before the garrote was ever tightened. The paintbrush used to twist the cord came from Patsy's own art supplies, the knot. Some called it sophisticated, possibly nautical. Others said it was basic. Any outdoorsman could tie it. The autopsy also found evidence consistent with sexual assault, and the area had been wiped clean. Someone took time to stage or clean the scene. Then there's the pineapple. Undigested pineapple was found in JonBenét's stomach. The parents said she went straight to bed and never woke up. But crime scene photos show a bowl of cut pineapple on the kitchen table, a spoon inside. Fingerprints on that bowl matched only 2 people, Patsy and Burke. A bowl of fruit isn't a murder weapon, but it contradicts the family's timeline. And in a case built almost entirely on circumstantial evidence, contradictions like that carry weight. For over a decade, public opinion had effectively convicted the Ramseys. Tabloids ran with it. Talk shows ran with it. Then, in 2003, testing on JonBenét's clothing turned up something that shifted the entire case. A foreign male DNA profile. Unidentified. It didn't match John. It didn't match Burke. In 2008, newer touch DNA technology found the same unknown male profile on a separate piece of clothing per the waistband of her long johns. That same year, the Boulder County District Attorney did something almost unheard of. She issued a formal written apology to the Ramsey family, stating that DNA evidence excluded all 3 of them from suspicion. But a later DA publicly disagreed, saying the apology oversold what the DNA proved. Touch DNA can transfer in innocent ways. A factory worker who packaged the clothes, contamination at the morgue. So what does the DNA tell us? It tells us someone unknown touched JonBenét's clothing. It doesn't tell us when or why. And after being run against national databases for over 2 decades, that profile has never matched anyone. That unidentified male is still sitting in the system today, waiting. It's worth saying plainly, investigators were split on this from early on. One detective, Lou Smith, argued an intruder was responsible. Authorities located an unidentified boot print near the body and a theory that a stun gun had been used to subdue her. Critics pushed back. The basement window he pointed to still had undisturbed cobwebs and dust. Hard to explain if someone had climbed through it that night. Neither side has ever been able to close the argument. In 1998, a grand jury was convened. For over a year, they heard from dozens of witnesses and reviewed thousands of pages of evidence. In the fall of 1999, the public was told, insufficient evidence, no charges. Case closed for now. That was not the full truth. In 2013, after a legal fight by a local journalist, a judge unsealed the grand jury records. The documents revealed something stunning. The grand jury had actually voted to indict John and Patsy Ramsey, not for murder, for child abuse resulting in death, and for acting as an accessory after the fact. The jurors believed the parents may not have committed the killing themselves, but knew more than they ever told police, and took steps to protect someone. But here's what most people don't know about Colorado law. A grand jury indictment means nothing without the district attorney's signature. The DA at the time reviewed it and refused to sign. He said he didn't believe there was enough evidence to guarantee a conviction beyond a reasonable doubt. So no charges were filed. No trial happened. A citizen jury found enough probable cause to bring serious charges against both parents, and one prosecutor's signature. Patsy Ramsey died of ovarian cancer in 2006. She's buried beside her daughter in Georgia. John Ramsey, now in his 80s, has spent years demanding one thing: that forensic genetic genealogy, the same technology that caught the Golden State Killer in 2018, finally be applied to the unknown male DNA in this case. As of the latest public updates, Boulder police have confirmed they're working with the FBI and outside labs on renewed testing. The case is active. New leads are coming in. The technology has advanced dramatically since this case went cold. The real question is whether investigators can turn that unidentified DNA into a name, and whether, after 30 years, anyone still can. Nearly 30 years later, one little girl's name still echoes through American criminal history, not because we don't know what happened, but because we still can't agree why. If this is the kind of case you want more of, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.